What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. Welcome back, Shadowverse soldiers. We are back with another Set 5 Omens Eternal reveal. I want to go ahead and apologize because someone caught me on a legendary that I'd missed for Dragoncraft. It was like a rhino. If you want to go ahead and check it out, I'll put a link down here below if you want to look at it. But besides that, let's go ahead and see what cards are coming out in Set 5 for Swordcraft. Alright, so the first card we're going to be looking at is Apostle of Usurpation. So it's a 4-cost 3/4. You can evolve him for 1, and when he comes into play, you put the top 2 cards of the enemy deck to the graveyard. And then if there are 10 or more cards in the enemy graveyard, you draw a card. Alright, so I don't know if you guys come from different games perspectively, but it looks like it's getting like some sort of dredge vibe. And if you don't know what dredge is from Magic the Gathering, you mill your deck and you get some sort of advances whenever you mill your deck. But it looks like you're going to be milling your opponent's deck with Apostle and then getting some sort of generation off of that. So it looks like Abysscraft is probably going to be like the best optimal matchup for this, because their main goal is to get the Necrocharge 10 and do whatever they need to do. But you got to remember, if you're using a card like this on turn 4, you're definitely helping them in terms of getting to the later of the games. But as long as they have 2 or 10 or more cards, in the graveyard, you're going to be drawing a card. Let's see what the Evolve form looks like. Alright, so we have the Apostle Evolve, so he becomes a 4/5, and on Evolve, you choose a follower on the enemy field and deal 4 damage to it. So far, not that interesting for an Evolve. It's nice to get 4 damage off and have some sort of, damage dealt through Swordcraft followers, because that's one of the things they lack is dealing damage. But, if you're going to be spending 4 and then having that 1 Evolve, I should be at least removing 1 card off the field since I used 5 play points in total. Alright, next up we have the spell card, Avaritia, Serpentine Blade. It's a 1-cost, and you look at the top 4 cards of your deck, you may put a bandit card to the hand from among them, and then put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. If you revealed an Octress Omen of Usurpation, put this back to hand. So if you don't know what the Octress is, she is the legendary for this set. I'm looking forward to reading what she does, but it looks like she's going to be revolving around bandit. Let's go ahead and figure out what the rest of these cards are. Alright, next up we have Captain Mateo. He's an 8-cost 7/7. You can evolve him for 1. When he comes into play, you choose an enemy leader and deal 4 damage to it. Alright, he's a big boy with some big stats, and he can do damage to leader exactly. That's something that Swordcraft only has like 1 other card that can do that. I'm pretty sure this is Narita Bryan. But I see this coming up in Glory Finder. Let's go ahead and see what this evolve does. Alright, looking at the Captain Evolve. So you choose a follower from the enemy field and destroy it. Alright, so it looks like Swordcraft has some spot removal. I believe this is a bandit follower too, so you're able to search for it with the spell card that we just looked at. But finally, there's some spot removal. So Swordcraft has spot removal. I don't think there's any other card that just straight up destroys a card in terms of a follower, but Swordcraft finally has that. Let's go ahead and see what the other cards have in store. Alright, moving forward, we have Confront Adversity. It's a 2-cost spell. You put a Shield Guardian and a Knight into the field, and if there's a follower with the original cost of 6 or higher in the enemy field, give it +3/+3 to both Shield Guardian and Knight, and then you recover 2 play points. Alright, so you play the spell and you get 2 tokens. They're both 1/1s, the other one has Ward and the one doesn't, but if they have a 6-cost follower on the field or higher, they both get +3/+3, and this card becomes free, which is pretty cool. I can already see some wacky situations with Leonidas' Resolve, just making these 2 tokens absolutely huge. And then they have Rush, so they can swing into a body at the same time. And then you gotta remember that the Shield Guardian has Ward as well, so I feel like Leonidas Resolve would be a perfect card for this. Okay, but outside of living in the past, let's look at Disciple of Usurpation. She's a 3-cost 3/2. She has Storm, and she has a strike ability, so when she swings, you put the top card of the enemy deck to the graveyard, and then if there are 10 or more cards in the enemy graveyard, this card gives +2 attack. So yet again, another optimal matchup for Abysscraft. You just mill your opponent, and if they have 10 or more cards, you're probably going to be asking how many cards they have in their deck, so you can make sure that 2 is the 2 that you need to get them to 10. Or if they're at 10 or more, mill them out. That might be another strategy if you're trying to get to that, but you're Swordcraft, so you're trying to really rush them down. So she becomes a 5/2, you're going to swing, and 5 damage is enough to get through, but you got to remember she has 2 defense, so be very careful when you do swing with her. Okay, next up we have Imperial Swordsman. He's a 5-cost 5/4, and at the start of your end phase, you choose a follower from the enemy field, deal 4 damage to it, and then you deal 2 damage to its leader. Alright, so it looks like Swordcraft is getting more terms of removal, and that's pretty good, because that's one of the things that Sword was really struggling with, was removal. And now there's lots of cards that just, pick a follower, destroy it. I mean, it's a little expensive on the one card we looked at, but there's other cards where you can deal 4 damage, so there's way to remove things. So Imperial Swordsman, looking at this card, you're going to be dealing 4 damage at the end phase and then dealing 2 damage to its leader. So if your opponent's at 2, then you know it's GG's. Because at the end of the end phase, in quick timing, your effects go off first, and then your opponent gets to respond after your end phase effects. Alright, next up we have Gravity Kinetic Warrior. She's a 4-cost 4/4. When she comes into play, you choose a token follower from your field and it gets +2/+2. Okay, looking at this card, this might be the perfect card to be playing with Confront Adversity. So you're on 4 play points and then your opponent has a 6-cost follower on the field, so you play that for 2. You recover those 2 play points, those guys get 3/3, and then you play Gravinetic Warrior. She comes into play and then you choose one of the tokens, probably the Ward one, and it gets +2/+2. And looking at the Machine Artisan Geno, so he's a 2-cost 2/2, you can evolve him for 1, and whenever you play an amulet, select a follower on your field and you give it +1 defense. So I think this card is going to be mostly used in Glory Finder. I don't know if there's any real good amulets in Swordcraft, but let's go ahead and see what his evolve does. Alright, and then we have Geno Evolve. So he still has that ability of whenever you play an amulet, you give a follower +1 defense, but on Evolve, you search for an amulet from your deck and then you put it to your hand. So thinking off the top of my head, I can't think of any amulets there are for Swordcraft. If you guys know any below, let me know down in the comment section below and inform me. But I'm not a huge Swordcraft follower, but I do play the deck, but I don't know many amulets that go with the deck. Let's go ahead and see if there are any other cards from the set that might be amulets. Alright, and we have our first legendary. We have Magna Legacy, so it's an 8-cost 8/8. When it comes into play, you banish the top half of your deck, round it up. You deal 4 damage to all enemy leaders and all enemy followers. If 15 or more cards were banished this way by this effect, you deal 8 damage instead. So that's a lot for an ability for sure, especially if you're doing it in the early turns. You hit this card on 8. But I feel like this is going to be one of those bigger cards that's in Glory Finder because you're going to be dealing damage to every single follower and then every single leader, so you can do a really good board wipe, but it's at the cost of half of your deck. And we have our premier legendary. We have Octress, Omen of Usurpation. So she's a 2-cost 2/2. You can evolve her for 2 or you can evolve her for 0. This effect can only be used if there are 10 or more cards in the enemy graveyard. But when she comes into play, you put the top 2 cards of your enemy deck to the graveyard, and you can activate for 8 play points to choose a card from your enemy graveyard and change it to 0 and then play it. So this card's got a full text. So you're essentially going to be playing her, milling the top 2. She's a 2-cost 2/2. That's really the big benefit of her. So you can evolve her for free as long as there are 10 or more cards in your enemy's graveyard, and you can activate for 8 play points, so the rest of your play points after playing her. You can change any card from your opponent's graveyard to 0 and then play it, and I'm assuming you get their fanfare effect as well. Alright, so we have Omen Evolve. So as long as this is in the field, when you play a card from your EX area, if there are 10 or more cards in your enemy graveyard, subtract 2 from its cost. And then on Evolve, you can choose a card from the enemy graveyard, put it to your EX area, and you can activate for 8 play points to choose a card from your enemy graveyard and change its cost to 0 and then play it. So I see some interesting shenanigans with this card exactly. So your opponent's cards in the graveyard are actually going to be your cards as long as you have Octress on the field. Just as long as you have those 8 play points to go ahead and change that cost to 0 and then playing it. Or you can use the Evolve if they have 10 or more cards and then put that card into the EX area, and then that card will cost 2 less as long as there are 10 more cards in their graveyard. But moving on, we have Servant of Usurpation, so he's a 1-cost 1/2, and during your turn, whenever a card from the enemy deck being put to the graveyard, this card gets +1 attack. And then when it comes into play, you put the top card of the enemy deck to the graveyard. Alright, so if I said it before, I apologize. I said that Abysscraft is like the optimal matchup for it for the Necrocharge 10, but we're really here talking about reveals. I don't want to get too into, deck archetypes and like this versus that. But if you do guys want me to talk about these archetypes in like a deeper fashion or more, so like, what's the matchup versus Swordcraft and Abysscraft with this new Octress, then let me know down in the comments below about that too, and I will definitely look into it, and that can be some more videos in the future. Alright, and we have another quick spell, so it's a 2-cost, Usurping Spineblade. So it's a quick, you choose a follower from your enemy field, you deal 3 damage to it, and then you put the top card of the enemy deck to the graveyard. Then if there are 10 or more cards in the enemy graveyard, you deal another 2 damage. Dealing 5 to an enemy follower is absolutely good to do, especially in quick timing. You just have to pay attention to how many cards are in their graveyard. If they're at 9 and you get to that 10, as soon as you mill that, then you're sitting in very good money to be dealing 5 to something. Alright, and lastly, we're looking at the Octress Evolve. She looks absolutely beautiful. Anyone looking forward to the Swordcraft stuff, I hope you pull this out of your packs/boxes or cases. I wish the best of luck to you. Alright guys, well that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. You don't know how much it means to me that you watch my content. I absolutely love all of you that are keeping in tabs with everything. Alright, I'm probably going to be streaming on YouTube when it comes to the Sunday webcam locals. I need to ask for approval to be streaming on YouTube, but I think my Sunday webcam locals are going to move into YouTube because that's where I'm going to be doing everything for Shadowverse, and I think that's all I'm really going to be doing. So that's what we're going to be doing moving on forward if you guys needed an update on that. But I hope you guys are safe in whatever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.